Welcome to today's webinar on reducing cost and complexity by modernizing your cloud platform. We are thrilled to have you here, and this webinar will be on demand only. So if you have any questions, please email marketing@resolvetech.com. My name is Carla Hartman. I am the Vice President of Marketing at Resolve Tech Solutions, and I'm joined today by Michael Brown, Director of Architecture and Innovation at Resolve Tech Solutions. Michael has over 30 years of IT experience and he is an expert in cloud assessments, migrations, cloud economics, and really anything cloud related. So you're in for a treat. A little bit about Resolve Tech Solutions. We were founded in 1997. We help companies implement any SAP migrations, managed services with SAP, cloud migrations, cloud infrastructure support, cloud managed services, anything under the cloud realm. We also work a lot in digital transformation, and we have an AI, ML, and RPA practice. We truly believe that digital technology is a catalyst for innovation and change in the workplace, and that is what we partner with our clients to enable. So today's webinar is especially important because 98% of enterprises are in the cloud in one way or another, but 32%, based on statistics, are unhappy with their cloud provider. The good news is you're not married to your cloud provider. If you're looking to lower cloud costs, reduce complexity, increase visibility into your cloud operations, and address security concerns, or just get more support, then you're in the right place for this webinar. Because let's all face it, not all cloud providers are the same. And as we start to introduce more AI, ML capabilities, your cloud provider is really going to matter. Some have made those continuous investments to ensure that they're keeping up with the latest technologies, and they're including new services and features and enhancing their performance and optimizing cost infrastructure. So that's what we're going to focus on today, because some have not. And we're going to take you through our proven process to ensure you have the best, most cost-effective cloud experience possible. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Michael to get started.
Again, my name is Michael Brown. I lead the architecture practice here at RTS. And in our cloud practice, when we're working with customers, it's interesting. We have this opportunity to work with customers that are in traditional data centers and traditional hosting centers and third-party centers, as well as some of the original legacy cloud platforms, as well as the hyperscalers. And we get to see a lot of different variety of use cases, and we get to see a lot of variety of frustration and difficulties as well. Let's start the conversation. I'm just going to give you the bottom line up front. The top 3 reasons, we're going to talk about a lot more of why we might want to look at moving from our what I'll call legacy cloud or first generation cloud platforms and moving to a hyperscaler. And I'll define a hyperscaler. I'm not going to name the first gen clouds or the legacy clouds, but the hyperscalers are going to be Amazon, Azure, Google, Oracle in some cases, right? We'll the cloud platforms that are being heavily invested in and continuing to grow at a very fast pace. Here's the top 3 reasons, right? Number 1 is the scale and the flexibility of those cloud platforms. From the first gen clouds, there's a lot of technical debt still in those platforms, right? They've updated the websites, they've updated a lot of the procedures, but there's still a lot of technical debt in those platforms because there's just not the revenue and the customer base to be able to continually reinvent those platforms. And the flexibility of the platform, the new features, the new capabilities, the new services, the new compute types, the new the new cloud native services that are deployed globally. They just don't get the opportunity to experience those types of capabilities. Next, which is really feeds into that scale and flexibility, is the speed of innovation. I'll give you one anecdote. So I guess it was last year in 2022, I think. AWS alone produced over 3,100 new features to their platform. That's not bug fixes. That's not, fixing, typos. It's new capabilities to the platform. Um, it's pretty much impossible to keep up with something like that. And then you take the other hyperscalers. Amazon was the most by far, but then behind that was Azure, and then behind that was GCP. Just the amount of speed, or the speed of innovation, is breathtaking on these platforms. And each new innovation might be something that would be able, for your business to be able to take advantage of. That speed of innovation feeds directly into the breadth of service offerings. Everything, from the traditional core, compute, storage, and networking, security, all the way up through all the cloud native services, everything for all the different platforms as a service, databases as a service, content delivery networks, AI and ML, platforms as a service. I mean, it just, the breadth of service offerings is extreme. And then next is cost efficiency, and we'll talk more about this in a couple of different contexts when we're talking about first gen clouds. The cost efficiencies for sometimes cheap isn't always cost efficient. Sometimes cheap is just can also lead to frustration. And we'll talk about some of the the cost competitive capabilities and some of the the funding opportunities that the hyperscalers can bring to the table when you look at doing migrations. So let's dig into these and expand them out and look at what else we have. So we're kind of touching on this, right? All clouds are basically the same, right? No, they're not. Not all cloud providers are created equal. Not even in the hyperscalers are not all created equal. And especially when you compare hyperscalers to your first gen cloud platforms and your hosting platforms. We talked about the service offering, right? We, the when you're looking at your business and you're looking at what you need to be able to do, with the future, sometimes just the standard traditional compute and storage and networking is going to be fine, but you can't build a strategy off of just infrastructure, right? When you're looking at the ways that you can, what you can do for your business and what kind of capabilities you can add, you really need to look at the breadth of the service offering. The global presence, where's the cloud? How many locations do they have? Are the services that you want to have available in those presence? What we see is the first gen clouds and the hosting centers, they're struggling to maintain. They may have a lot of data centers, but and they may be able to deploy in a lot of different locations. But what we see is the time of delivery and time to delivery, working through capacity planning with these vendors. These are all things that you have to take in and take into account. We've talked about the pricing structures. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But just in the cloud native platforms, they're starting to reach a natural truth, right? They bill by the second. They have commit levels. They have on demand. They have spot. And they help you. They help work with you on a workload by workload basis to be able to maximize your infrastructure costs and your platform costs with lots of pricing structures. And you're not locked in, based on just signing a 12-month or a 36-month contract. You've got a lot of different options there, and you have a lot of options on your architecture as well, right? Being able to use messaging buses, queue services, and event buses. These types of things are all built into the platform. And moving to a more cloud native structure or a cloud native architecture can actually drive your cost structure and your price structures down. Performance consistency. This is going to be something that we definitely look at. A lot of times with the first gen clouds and the legacy hosting platforms, they talk about dedicated infrastructure and dedicated hardware, and there's definitely benefit to that. But we'll talk a little bit in the next couple of slides, about what is the impact of having to have dedicated infrastructure that doesn't have self-hosting or self-service capabilities. And then security and compliance. When you talk about the Amazons and the Azures and the Googles, the security platform is growing, just tremendous amount of investment, tremendous amount of growth, tremendous amount of depth and maturity around the security controls, the ecosystem of partners that are around security that know how to implement that know how to implement the frameworks and the capabilities of the platform. Just a lot of depth there. Integration. So this kind of goes back, integration and capabilities as well as, ecosystem and marketplace. These kind of go together. When you're looking at, the different cloud providers, when you go to a marketplace in Azure or AWS, there is every software, all the major software platforms are there. All the major platforms as a services are there. So you have a lot of different capabilities that you can bring to bear on demand rapidly. A lot of them have free trials, so it allows you to do a lot of experimentation and, education and, and figuring out how to build architectures in the cloud. And a lot of times we don't have that capacity or that capability in the, the first gen or the traditional hosting centers. Support and SLAs, just the level of capability. Now, what I want to talk about, support and SLAs, if you're doing fully managed services or fully a level of application managed services, that's something a little bit different. Application, what I would argue, and what I'd love to have a conversation about, is having an application managed services contract on top of a hyperscaler is going to be more advantageous than having an application managed services on top of a first gen or traditional hosting center. And it's one of the things that you have to look at is, don't want you to construe application managed services and somebody managing your application stack as the cloud platform itself. Training and resources. This is huge. The cloud platforms have massive amounts of training online, ready to go. You can do self-training, self-paced training. You can do in-person training. There's third parties. You go into YouTube or to Twitch. There's just tremendous amounts of videos of third-party people and as well as training companies just talking about the platforms and how it's used, blog posts. There's just a rich amount of training and resources available for the hyperscale platforms. And finally, innovation and roadmap. Right. This is a little bit of a feedback back into the pace of innovation. It's just daily. Every single day, if you go to the what's new blog post of Azure and AWS, right, there's something new. There's some new service, some new feature, some new compute platform, some new storage, some new security feature, something new every single day. And you should look at your existing platform and go, you know what? Am I being brought this type of opportunity? One of the biggest aspects when we look at so we're a managed service provider, so we do the managed services and we do application managed services for certain applications. And one of the things that we have found, especially when we're working on these first gen clouds, is one of the reasons that we started having this conversation is when you're working in the first gen clouds in the hosting centers, there's a lot of manual processes. There's a lot of contacting sales or contacting tech support or contacting capacity planning. We're having to contact these vendors and ask for the ability and ask for upgrades and ask for storage. It's not self-service, right? And that slows down the process. It slows down the ability to be able to deliver value to our customers. So it's something that happens over and over again, and it actually adds up. And over time, especially when you hit capacity issues and constraints with these vendors, they surprise you, and you have to start changing your plans, right? So we've also noticed that you may have the cost on these platforms, they go down in some areas, but they go up in other areas, right? So and the ability to migrate from one service category of service in these platforms to another category of service in these platforms is not simple, right? It's not integrated. It's something that requires just almost a full-blown migration within the same cloud, right? There's a lot of value when it comes to the hyperscale clouds in their ability and their standardization and their integration of all their capabilities and services. That lack of consistency in the first gen clouds is one of the biggest difficulties when the operational aspect of the cloud. So RTS, we look at this and we say, you know what? Um, the reality is if you're if you've got an application platform and that application platform is stable, that application platform or those workloads don't have additional needs and requirements, and it's hitting your performance and your price benchmarks for the company, guess what? We're not going to tell you to move. We're going to be like, this is fantastic. If can we help drive some operational value for managing that platform for you, for being able to offload some of the undifferentiated heavy lifting on that platform. That's what we'd love to help do. But in order to discover that, so kind of on our service side, we have managed services. We help with governance and certifications. And specifically for cloud is we have an advisory practice, and that would help go through discovery, kind of understand what your application stack is, what if any gaps that you have, and map that out and provide a roadmap and an operational plan for you to be able to understand what the operational, the security, the price, the funding opportunities from a cloud platform. You'll take a good hard look at that and go, you know what? There's definitely value moving to the cloud. There's definitely value of looking at other options, and we can show that to you through our advisory services. We work hard with our to serve our customers both in their on-premise and their current data center locations, as well as but always with an eye of helping them to migrate to a more flexible platform in the cloud. So what would it, so I guess what I'd like to do here is talk to you a little bit about our migration methodology. So when you're looking at a migration, it's sometimes it's different than how we would do it in an on-premises world. So let's just kind of walk through what some of the first things that we look at and what the process might look like for you. So the first thing is we go through a discovery process, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But then we decide what is the best methodology to do this migration, right? And so you've probably seen this, and the number of R's has grown over the last couple of years. It used to be 6, and now it's 7. Actually, I think it used to be 5, and now it's 7. But these are migration patterns, right? And so the very first thing that we do is we go through the advisory services and we do a discovery, right? And that's an application discovery, an infrastructure discovery, understanding what you have in your current data center or current first-gen cloud or hosting center. Understand the contractual obligations that you have left, right? What's the timeline? We're looking for events. We're looking for natural events to be able to help facilitate these moves, right? We don't want to penalize the company or leave unused value on the table, right? We want to use all the value that's available. We do this discovery. We assess the platform and the infrastructure, and then we list out all the applications and tie those to servers. And then we say, we determine a migration path. The first one, it's the good old-fashioned tried and true lift and shift. The lift and shift allows us a lot of flexibility. It allows us to move fast. It's low risk. And especially if you're going from hosting center to cloud or cloud to cloud, there's many times, ample connectivity and bandwidth to be able to facilitate this type of move. And it really helps us to move fairly quickly. The tools and the capabilities of the cloud native platforms that they bring to bear for lift and shift are plentiful, right? They give us a lot of opportunity to be able to do this at a very cost effective play. The next one is going to be lift or re-platform. So if you think about lift and shift, I'm just going to pick up the server and the infrastructure, the servers that I have, and move them into the cloud and land them. The lift and re-platform is going to be very similar, but you may have a different size server, or we may have a new version of OS, or we may increase the storage, right? We might do a little bit of changing on the infrastructure, but it's effectively a lift and shift. Drop and shop or replace or repurchase. This is when you look at a platform, you go, you know what? I'm just going to buy something new, and I'm going to buy, possibly something that's, a platform as a service or a software as a service. This is these are great options, and they also help move very quickly as well. Now, re-architecting for mission critical applications, or for applications that are that are important to the business, re-architecting is going to give you the most value, but it's also the slowest, and it takes the most amount of resources. But when you can take an application and move it from its traditional client server architecture or server based architecture and be able to consume cloud native capabilities or cloud native services in those applications, it drives the infrastructure costs down, and it helps you to get the more granular, per second, per minute, per unit cost pricing versus having to pay for a server each month. We have an entire team of architects and software engineers that can help facilitate this. Sometimes it's retain and revisit, right? We're not going to do anything with it right now. We see retain and revisit a lot of times with IBM Power Systems, with IBM mainframes, or just mainframes in general. We can retain and revisit that, and we can provide integration and connectivity options for those platforms. Retire and decommission. We're just going to turn it off. Nobody's using it. We're going to take an archive copy of it. We're going to keep that, but we're not going to be moving forward with it. And then relocate. Sometimes it could be a PBX. It could be some sort of infrastructure that's, for industrial use, or for, that requires, physical presence. We're just going to pick that up and move it. So once we go through that process, this is the rest of the plan, right? So we go through that discovery process, and that's gonna generate, from the data collection and the analysis, that's going to generate an architectural roadmap. It's going to generate business use case support. Then we're going to go through the planning phase. That's going to give us, the migration plan, the wave plan, the schedules. Right? So we're going to take all the application and all the servers. Then we're going to apply that into different wave groups, and then we're going to apply those wave groups to a schedule. Right, and then from that schedule, we're going to look at business events and different, everything from holidays to end of months to those types of things, and then fit those waves into the plan. Then that leads into building out the cloud platform, preparing it, putting in a control tower, landing zone, making it secure, getting network connectivity, getting SSO authentication, putting all of that in place and ready to receive the migration. And then we go into migration. We start moving the bits. And we'll go into a little bit of here. So real world, here's some of the areas when we go through that assessment, right? We want to kind of here on the right-hand side, things like we want to know who owns the application, who's responsible for it. Are there any timing schedule constraints? Things like end of month, holidays, Black Friday, these types of things, Super Bowl Sunday, right? We want to understand what the constraints are. Then we categorize those application tiers. Is it dev, production, mission critical? We also look at and see if it's, we categorize it as, is it a manufacturing or laboratory application, right? Because they're going to have different, different constraints, and they might not be able to move to the cloud. We want to understand what the backup HADR plan is. It existing, or is there? In a lot of cases, it's very rudimentary, possibly in one environment, and then when they get to the cloud, they want to be able to create a new desired state. We understand how that application is monitored, who's monitoring it, who's taking care of it, right? We understand if there's tribal support. Is there like a power user or a person that understands that? We want to understand that. And then we go through some of the dependencies like Active Directory, firewalls, network connectivity, any kind of legacy system, right? We want to put all of this goes into, an assessment mapping. And then, in a migration, that assessment mapping is just one of the events that goes into the plan, right? We come from the source environment. We use tools and telemetry to be able to pull that into the plan. We use a discovery workshop, right? So if you look at the cloud adoption framework, all the major cloud providers use this terminology, cloud adoption framework. We use that methodology to understand, to get the context from the business, to get the context from the principals and the leaders, as well as the operational teams that are going to be using these workloads, right? So we put all that into the plan, and then from the plan we create the target state, create the execution state, and we iterate through it. So hyperscale clouds, they give us free tools. I mean, it's really cool. So used to when we were doing data migrations between data centers and on-prem to data centers and hosting centers, there were third-party migration tools that you would have to go and buy, and they were very expensive. They were very good, but they were very expensive. And you had to have people who knew how those tools worked. What's really cool in today's world, like so, for example, Amazon, Google, and AWS have free commercial grade tools to do migrations, and they allow for hot migration. So it's always some sort of agent or collector that sits in the host environment or the source environment. It connects to the individual servers, and it does a full replication copy at the block level into the target cloud. And then after the initial replication is complete, it just sends deltas. What is great about this methodology, this hot migration strategy, is you can move dozens or even hundreds of servers over a couple of weeks, right? Even if your bandwidth is relatively low, or you have only certain hours of the day that you can do the migration because the business is using it the other times. This allows us to move this data set, at night, on weekends, and then just let it trickle for a couple of days. And this gives us ultimate flexibility on when to cut over. So we're not stuck waiting for servers to replicate. They've already been replicated. Using this methodology, we've moved, I've seen over 1,000 servers moved in just about 4 days. It is a very powerful method, and that all three cloud hypervisors can support. It's very powerful. Real world optimization. So, once you land in a target hyperscale cloud, we don't stop there, right? We're going to help you and walk you through understanding what the optimization capabilities are. Each one of the platforms have some rendition of what they call a trusted advisor or an advisory service. Once you start landing workloads in those cloud platforms, it's going to start giving you immediate feedback on this server is over provisioned, this server is under provisioned. You have you're spending too much money here, and just by monitoring that and making those recommended changes, you can start optimizing your platform. You also use the native monitoring, the cloud native monitoring, and third-party tools. We personally use a platform called Logic Monitor for our managed service. We deploy this and we watch the performance of the servers and the infrastructure, as it sits, and make sure that we're sizing correctly. I tell all my customers, no matter what you think it runs on premises or in your existing environment, go smaller in the cloud, because it's so easy to increase the performance later. And you want to be able to use what you need, right? We want servers to being utilized, not being underutilized. Be bold, right? Be bold in that, and base it on application performance. We help you with your storage, how to right size that. We help you look at your spending plans, right? So all the hyperscale cloud platforms have commit plans, and understanding how those commit plans work, and understanding how those how to execute against those commit plans is extremely important, because a commit plan is a great strategy for running workloads that are always going to be on. But if you've got something like a dev environment or a validation environment that you can turn off, there is nothing cheaper than off. And you don't want to miss the opportunity to be able to turn workloads off and use on-demand pricing, and only use them once or twice a month, or turn them on, a couple of times a week, versus a spending plan or a commit plan that you're spending a lower rate, but you're still spending it every single month. Right. We talk about opportunities for spot. We talk about opportunities to be able to containerize applications. There's a lot of great tools that the cloud providers are delivering to us to be able to take even existing .NET applications and wrap them into containers.
So we did have 2 questions come in, Michael.
Awesome.
The first one is regarding, is it harder to do on-premise to cloud or cloud to cloud, or that depends?
Oh, I'm an architect. It always depends. No, so it actually it truly does depend. But let me give you a couple of examples. So if you're in a first gen cloud platform, again, I'm not going to name any names, Or if you're in a a data, a hosting center or a third-party hosting center. A lot of times, one of the things that makes that very simple is there's companies like Packet Fabric that provide on-demand bandwidth, right? So you don't have to even interrupt your infrastructure, but they can provide, month to month on demand, 10 gig connectivity between clouds. And this will allow us to be able to move things very quickly. And when we're over, turn it off and it goes away. Right. So so those are the types of things that make it faster. On the other side is sometimes, we got to get firewall rules opened up. We don't have capacity for certain things because we need, we might need some extra storage or something on premises or in the hosting center. So working with the cloud vendors, and if they have capacity issues or contractual issues that we don't have access to things, we have to work through those. So it's a balance.
All right. And the second question that came in, and the final question, what cool AI functionality have you seen with the different cloud providers? Do you have anything you can share in that aspect?
Sure. Yeah, we were actually just working on a couple of people, um, Amazon Bedrock. So it's, they launched this platform that, everybody likes Chat GPT and Claude and Bard, and these are fantastic, but they're public platforms. So any data you put into those platforms, they keep. And it may come out somewhere else. So when you think about this technology and wanting to use it in business or wanting to use it for personal reasons, how do you build a platform rapidly and use your own data? Like, what would it be like to use my own quotes and my own documents and my own, instruction manuals and stuff like that, and put that all in and be able to ask it, natural language questions. Amazon Bedrock is a platform that just went GA about, I guess, last month or two or 3 weeks ago, that allows you to do just that, right? Ingest the data into S3, use SageMaker to process the documentation, and then Bedrock has, I can't remember how many models. It's got GPT-4 and Sage, and I don't know, there's 5 or 6 other ones, and it's right there, right? You can put it together, build it out, walk through it, and have a working model on your data in, I don't know, an hour and a half. Like, it's pretty incredible.
All right, very cool. Well, that concludes our webinar for today. That Amazon Bedrock has me thinking that might be a good upcoming webinar. And for upcoming webinars, please follow our LinkedIn page. That's where we post our upcoming webinars. And you can also get signed up for our email list there. We appreciate your time this afternoon. And if you have any further questions, please reach out at marketing@resolvetech.com. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.